Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in. Hope you've all had a good Christmas and New Year. So I'm going to just hire dry fly for you today. So I'm sort of gearing up to get my displays and stuff done for the British Fly Fair. And I've been tying some of these. So this is a fly designed by Phill White. This is his Active Dun. So during Mayfly season, I'll only really use 3, maybe 4 patterns. This being my go-to. Then a spinner version also designed by Phill. And he also designed one called the Active Dun, which is pretty much the same. It's just got more pheasant tail in as the tail. And rather than having this segmentation at the back, it's actually pure pheasant tail to halfway. So what that does is it sort of mimics that shuck as the fly's leaving it behind. And it's a great pattern. So other than that, I might occasionally use a Mohican, but I find that with this being pheasant tail, it's a lot softer. So when the fish rise to it, they take it a lot easier. Sometimes that extended body of a Mohican, it can push away from them as they're rising to them. So as I say, this is my go-to. So let's get right into it. Right, so in the vise we've got a Partridge Ideal Dry. This is a size 12. I would tie these in a 10 maybe as well, but I tend to mainly fish the 12 really. So first thing we're going to do is I'm going to put some wax on my thread. So I make my own fly tying wax. So I do little discs of this. So if anyone wants any, you can drop me a message. I can get some out to you. So I'm going to wax this up. Great thing with this wax is you don't need to keep rubbing it on to get it to adhere like some of the shop bought ones. You know, one rub up the thread and it's coated nicely. So I'm going to start probably sort of 2 eyes back, whip that on, and I'm going to take that, and this is, sorry, I should have said before I started, this is sheer, like Cahill. So I'm going to take that down to the point of the hook. So just there. And then the next thing I'm going to do is take some pheasant tail. So you want long fibres of this. So I'm going to take 5 fibres. I'm going to pull them away from the stem to line my tips up and pull them off. So I'm going to measure my tail, so I want a hook length. And then I'm going to whip that on the top of the shank and just tie down to before the bend. And I'm going to leave my thread hanging there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave 2 of these fibres in and I'm going to get rid of the other ones like that. And then I'm going to take a hackle plier. You can do this by hand if they're long enough. And I'm going to wind this back. So I'm going to do a turn in front of where I tied it in. And then I'm going to take it all back to the bend. So one more. And then I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 turns, and I'm going to cut that out. I'm going to get it as close as I can to the hook. Then the next thing I'm going to come in with, this is some from Veniards, the Wapsi Superfine. So this is Pale Morning Dun. So I'm going to take some of this, and I'm going to create a dubbing loop. A dubbing noodle, sorry. So and the thing with Superfine is we only want to do a bit at a time. And you can, you know, if you're not thick enough, you can build up on top, but little bits at a time I find is the best way to get this on. So it takes a little bit of time, but no point rushing it. A little bit thicker. That that should just do us there. So I'm going to push that up, and I'm going to do sort of 1, 2 or 3 turns at the back, and then I'm going to open, spiral it or rib it to in front of that pheasant tail there. Now I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to dub that now to the point that I tied in. Now you can see that body's not quite the right profile, but we'll sort that at a stage later on. So as I say, I'm going to come to the point that I tied in, or just in front, got a bit more space than I need there. I'm going to create a little bit of a taper with this, and then come in front. Right, so I'm going to come in with my tying wax again. So I'm going to put a hackle in now. So I've sized a hackle. This is a grizzly hackle, dyed light olive. So I'm going to expose some of the stem. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie this in right behind, in front of that dubbing, with a figure of 8, like so. So that means that my hackle will stand up perpendicular, and then I'm going to cut the stem short, but not too short. I'm going to leave a bit of that still that you can see just dangling there. Let me just straighten this hook for you. So then I'm going to put some mod dubbing on now. So again, little bits at a time. Tiny bit more there, I think. Yep, so that should do us. Right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come behind and then in front, and I'm going to nip that stem backwards, like that. So you can see that now, going backwards, and I'm just going to dub that on and really lock that in. Just going to stretch this, neaten that dubbing noodle. So I'm going to now just check my profile and just create a taper, and I'm going to dub right back to the start of that pheasant tail. So I need a little bit more, just a tiny bit more, not too much. And I'm just going to make sure I've got a nice profile of this now. So, and I'm going to leave my thread at that point where the pheasant tail, where we tied the pheasant tail in. So then I'm going to do 1 full turn at the head of the dubbing, and then I'm going to do open turns back, only 3, 1, 2 and 3. Could open them a little bit more, to be fair. If you want that to come right back. So 1, 2 and 3. And then I'm going to take my thread, and I'm going to wiggle it as I go, try to not trap any of the fibres. So now that's my hackle trapped in, and I'm going to just wind that up, wiggling as I go to try and not trap any of those fibres to right at the front of the hackle. Now I'm going to sweep the hackles back, and I'm going to tie back onto them just to get them to sweep backwards. So that's that bit done. So now I'm just going to create a bit of a bed for the next stage. So the next thing I'm going to do is put a bit more wax on again. Always use the wax, it just helps everything tie in well. So I can cut our hackle away at the back, like that. Right, so next material is some elk body hair, and this is a light bull, and again this has been dyed a light olive, and then within that I've mixed some moose mane or moose body hair, sorry, should I say. And I put that in a stacker. You don't want too much, so I've just really done a little pinch of each. And I've stacked it to level up all my tips. You can see there, you know, there's not a lot there. So I'm now going to offer that up, and I want it to come just past the bend of the hook. So I'm going to grab it with my other hand, counter spin my thread to flatten it, just makes it a bit easier to tie in. And I'm going to do loose turns, 2, 3, and I'm going to pull up. Now I'm going to lock that in, and as I'm locking it, I'm giving it some tight pulls. You don't want to pull too tight or you will snap. So I'm going to keep that taut, then I'm going to grab that elk and I'm going to pull it forward, and I'm going to put 1, 2 turns, trying not to trap these hackles, 2 turns behind, and then I'm going to sweep everything up. I'm going to come in front and I'm going to create a head, and I'm going to prop up those butts as well as I do that. So I'll get a nice head. So I'm happy with that. And then next thing I'm going to do is just get some varnish. I'm going to put a little bit onto my thread, and then I'm going to whip finish. So 1, 2, 3. Always do 2 whip finishes for security. 1, 2, 3. Right, we're nearly there now. So I'm going to cut my butt end out of this thread like that. And then I'm just going to manipulate these butt ends. So I've only got the butts in my hand. Got a stray one there. So now I've gathered up all those. Just going to tilt it towards me just so I can see a little bit better. And I'm just going to create like an elk head. Only a small one, don't want it too big. Like that. I can see I've got a couple of stragglers here. So with my OCD I'm going to have to trim them out. Like that. Right, so now the fly, you know, you could fish this as it is if you wished. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fly out. I'm going to turn it that way onto me. And I'm actually going to cut a V out of the hackles at the bottom. And what that does is, 1, it means that when the fly hits the water, it will always land the right way up. You know, if you wanted it to sit a little bit lower, you could trim them all off flat, but I like to have it with a little V just cut out of them. Couple there, like that. And then that is your finished fly. So, you know, it's not the prettiest of mayflies that you can tie, but my God, it's effective. And it's one that you definitely need to get in your box. Couple of stragglers there, so neaten them up. So yeah, so that's the Phill White Mayfly. This is the Active Dun. So get some tied up, get them in your box, ready for mayfly, and go and catch some fish. So thanks for watching. See you on the next one. Take care, guys.